show, everybody.
Yeah.
War news.
A lot of stuff happened over the weekend.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Look, I will say I do appreciate the Iranian government and, our government for doing these strikes over the weekend so we can talk about them on Monday.
Yes.
But other than that, that's where my appreciation ends, essentially.
Yeah. I don't appreciate the strikes. I don't appreciate when bad things happen. However, silver linings and whatnot, when bad things happen in a timely manner so we can talk about them.
Yeah.
That's ultimately better for everybody here.
So obviously this show will be about war. The new war in the Middle East that we're doing. But we'll also be talking about some other generally bad stuff with the Supreme Court and also some news about like federal land. I thought SCOTUS and the federal land bit were going to be like the two big stories that we talked about this week.
Yeah, little did we know.
Little did we know that we would have Iran to talk about, of course. But before we get into that, I'll remind you all, become a patron if you want early access to all of our content. We did a super cool interview last week with Senate candidate in Michigan, a progressive, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. That was on our Patreon first.
Yes.
We also have an interview coming out with our lieutenant governor here in Michigan, also a candidate for governor, Garland Gilchrist. That will be coming on Thursday for patrons, so make sure to get in on it.
Yes, it will be the second episode for this week, dropping for everybody on Friday. I would highly recommend you go check that out and let us know how we did.
Yeah, let us know how we did, and let us know if you like these sort of interview-style videos.
Yeah.
Because it's more of a possibility for us nowadays. But I'll also remind you, this is the last time we'll get to remind everybody.
Yeah.
Go participate in the Hiddo Pride fundraiser.
It's good. And remember, once this is over, we are not talking about this ever again.
No, exactly. Once July hits, once we hit our
once the clock strikes
summer,
midnight, like Cinderella, it's gone.
Especially because I might be in Iran.
Yeah.
We might be broadcasting live from Iran after we get drafted.
We might be moving the podcast from Patreon to ham radio.
Exactly. So make sure to get in on that fundraiser, headintheoffice.com. All proceeds going to the Trevor Project, of course. And lastly, before we get into the news here, we got to read our 5-star reviews.
We do. We have two lovely, beautiful 5-star reviews today. This first one being from Issa7788. Hiddo podcast canceled? Over my graveyard dead body. Somehow these Midwest...
Wait.
Yeah.
That's a reference to...
the Florida sheriff.
Man, that's a good reference.
No, that was good. That got a hearty chuckle out of us. Good job. Somehow these Midwest dweebs have created the ultimate podcast for driving my Subaru to my public infrastructure job in the New York communist utopia. In all seriousness, I finish each episode feeling like all is not lost, which says a lot. Their consistency in calling out the DNC's unwillingness to do literally anything has influenced me to start my own personal campaign of verbal assault on my local representative, in which I refuse to stop calling his office every day until he commits to retiring. He's 76 and plans to run for re-election in 2026, 2 weeks strong, and my mid-mobile plan is so far unwavering. Keeping it real, y'all. P.S. I, of course, condemn Hamas and all forms of political violence. That's the one piece of news. The bad things this week happened, well, preemptively, hopefully the bad things this week happened before our record so we can get to it. And hopefully the good thing, Zorhan winning the primary, happens and we can talk about it on Thursday, because unfortunately, election's over tomorrow on Tuesday. Yeah.
The election is tomorrow, June 24th. If you're a New Yorker and you haven't voted, come on now.
What are you doing?
Rank Zorhan 1 and then follow whatever he tells you to do after that.
Yeah, Zorhan and Brad.
Yeah, it was Zorhan and Brad. Hopefully we can talk about some good results next time we record an episode, and hopefully we can praise Mr. Mamdani. If he loses, I think I will be turning to Soviet-style communism.
Yeah, no, if he loses, guys, I don't think there's hope in this political
I think authoritarianism is the only way forward. Left authoritarianism is the only way forward.
Rule with an iron fist.
This second and last review here from Strange Pro 1. Give these white boys a chance. They say, normally I do not endorse giving white men a microphone, but Jeremy and Gage are the exception. Hiddo is the best tertiary news source as it keeps me informed with a sense of levity. I have been spreading the good Hiddo word to everyone I know, as you both have the objectively correct takes on everything. Keep up the good work. Also, I condemn Hamas in all forms of political violence.
Lovely. Tertiary news source that's sometimes now dipping into primary sources with interviews.
That's right.
Amazing.
Maybe we will break news, or maybe we'll get like quoted by Fox or something one day. If we just get like a really good quote out of somebody.
That'd be fun. On the Head in the Office podcast, the ex-candidate for president said, and
I am happy to see another slogan taking hold in the Hiddo community with the tertiary news source stuff. I have noticed more people saying it, so I'm glad, number one geopolitical podcast, I condemn Hamas and whatnot, and now best tertiary news source.
It's good. Us. And it's just another example of how I got my fingers in your brain.
So I guess we should get into the news here and talk about war.
What's it good for?
Whoever made the meme, born too early to go to the Middle East, born too late to be deployed to the Middle East, born just in time to be deployed to the Middle East, They cooked. That's an evergreen meme, dude.
Yeah, I'm saying, dude, it feels like it's never going to lose relevancy.
Just to put this in perspective before we get into this, and we'll talk more about the war on terror later, of course, because it's just like, you can't separate these issues. There have been 3 years that we were not at war with some country in the Middle East. Man. And that was under Joe Biden. 3 years we were out of Afghanistan, and now we're back fucking with Iran.
But if we vote for Kamala Harris, we're going to be World War III.
Yeah.
If we vote for Kamala Harris, they're going to put us back in the Middle East in these forever wars. But Joe Biden bungled the Afghanistan pullout.
And to be fair, a precursor for all of this, of course, is October 7th and how Joe Biden completely fumbled the response to that, how he was complicit in a genocide in Gaza, and how we are still complicit in that now with President Trump, of course. But we had a few, I guess you could call it 2 years.
Yeah.
We had 2 years where we weren't doing massacres to people in the Middle East, and now we're right back on schedule.
I guess they had to get back to it.
Mm-hmm. But that's just a little pretext for you all. So Saturday evening this past week, Trump announced that a successful operation took place to bomb 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities. This operation was completed by the United States specifically, so this marks an important and distinct departure from what was happening before. Previously, it was Iran undertaking strikes, basically with U.S. approval. Now this is here directly the United States doing attacks on the nation of Iran, a pure escalation.
Yeah, we sent U.S. airmen in the U.S. B-2 stealth bomber to Iran, not the U.S., and dropped the exclusive U.S. bunker buster bombs onto these onto at least one of these nuclear sites, and launched 30 Tomahawk missiles from a submarine.
Yeah. And it has to be noted because, and I'll continue to bring this up because I think it's the most important point here. There has been no evidence presented that Iran has nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Really important point, especially when we consider Tulsi Gabbard in March testified in front of Congress saying Iran is, quote, not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. That was her testification in front of Congress.
Yeah.
You legally can't lie.
Yeah, and Marco Rubio was on one of the Sunday shows, Meet the Press, I think, and he was asked, so did the U.S. do this attack without evidence that the Ayatollah approved the development of nuclear weapons? And he said, that doesn't matter.
He said it doesn't matter. Trump goes and he was questioned about Tulsi Gabbard testifying and saying that they're not building a weapon. He said, she's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's wrong. I know I have a robust intelligence infrastructure, possibly one of the best in the world, but they're all wrong and I'm right. I'm going to say they're building a nuclear bomb so that I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, they're literally doing the WMDs in Iraq thing all over again. It was the same pretext in 2003 when they wanted to justify, when Bush wanted to justify the invasion into Iraq. And they're doing the exact same thing here. There are weapons of mass destruction, and if we let them fully use them or have ownership over them, then we're all going to die. Americans are going to die. Your kids are going to die. Whatever.
And it's interesting because then Tulsi Gabbard, director of national intelligence, decided that she was just going to step in line after Trump said she was wrong.
Yeah.
And now she's not being invited to the Situation Room to talk about these things. She's being ostracized for her earlier testimony.
It's doubly funny for Tulsi Gabbard because when she ran for president in 2020 in the Democratic primary, her whole thing was that the Democratic Party is too addicted to forever wars and that we need to stop doing regime change. And now she is on board in an administration that is actively trying to do regime change. And make no mistake, we will read a Trump quote in a little bit. It is a regime change effort.
Oh, absolutely.
It is because there are no nuclear bombs. So you have to ask the question, what are they trying to do? They are trying to they're either trying to turn Iran into a failed state or force regime change in the country.
And it's also we're also going to dive into how they're just not even trying to manufacture consent anymore.
Yes.
They're just doing these things.
It's insulting.
But these people aren't even trying to pretend that their statements have been consistent whatsoever. Tulsi Gabbard, when asked about that quote where she said things were not happening in front of Congress, she said, you guys took that out of context. Mm-hmm. The media took it out of context. Brother, what is there to take out of context? You said Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. Mm-hmm. I understand that earlier in the testimony, she said that they have an unprecedented amount of weapons-grade plutonium, or not weapons-grade, enriched uranium or something like that could be used to build a bomb, but you said they're not.
Uh-huh.
How do you reckon with that?
Yeah, that was Marco Rubio's line too. He was like, there is no evidence that the Ayatollah approved the manufacturing of such weapons, but because they have, some amount of 60% enriched uranium, that means they're going towards a nuclear weapon. It's that's not proof, though. That's just you speculating.
That's not proof. And actually, your people said no. Mm-hmm. Your people said no. You're just doing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're sort of asserting it. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to the extent of the actual damage caused by the U.S. strikes on Iran. Some say it was a total success. This is, of course, the Trump administration line saying that now Iran is no longer capable of producing a nuke. Trump hilariously said, this feels like old news now, but he said, we bombed Iran. Now's the time for peace.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about in a bit, that's not happening. Iranian state media claimed that Iran knew of the attack beforehand and moved their materials. The International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, said that there was no uranium leakage, which would have been the expectation had nuclear facilities been hit. So it's unclear exactly what the extent of the damage is. It's likely that we'll never know if this was successful or not.
Oh, absolutely. Because I imagine, like, if they could move all of this weapons-grade uranium or whatever the fuck that they had, we're not going to know where they moved it to.
Yeah.
It's going to be in a secret place. And now we're just forcing them to force their nuclear program, whether or not it's actually there to build weapons or to just do nuclear energy or whatnot, further underground and further away from international oversight.
100%.
This is not good. And it's also the fact that, like, you want to bomb the bunker that's holding all this really bad stuff and just let that stuff go?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, isn't that extraordinarily dangerous?
Yeah.
Because, like, wouldn't you, I don't know how any of this works, but let's say they had the uranium necessary for a nuclear bomb and you hit the site, would that not, like, set off a nuclear blast?
Aren't there, like, spots in Japan that you're still not supposed to go to?
Yeah. We're just trying to, like, massacre people.
Like, you can't just, like, let toxic waste go in the environment. What about, like, Chernobyl?
Yeah, I know. Who fucking knows, dog? So it's unclear exactly what happened. Immediately after the attack, though, Iran launched a barrage of missiles at Israel. Some of them hit, wounded around 100 people or so. I was going to say, as of today, that we're not sure how Iran will retaliate on the whole, but they were launching missiles at, I think it was Qatar, right?
They're launching missiles at an airbase in Qatar as of, like, an hour before we're recording.
U.S. airbase, yeah.
All news broke that Qatar was able to successfully, like, shoot down the missiles. There are no casualties reported. I don't know about damage, but we moved all our planes out of the airbase last week anyway, in anticipation of attacks and just with what was going on with Israel and Iran before we even bombed, which tells me somewhat that we were already thinking about just blowing the bomb and wanting to protect our assets in general. But yeah, things are actively popping off. The Iranian Royal Guard is saying things like, we will not let, like, an encroachment into our soil or an attack on us go unnoticed. And they launched this attack. And now we're just kind of waiting to see how Trump and his administration will respond to that.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting. I'm not going to hold my breath for anything good to happen.
Yeah. So keep in mind, anything that, any of, like, the ongoing events we're talking about here, this is recorded on Monday, June 23rd.
Yeah.
So by the time this comes out on Wednesday for you Wednesday weenies, who knows how Iran could have responded? Maybe they end up killing U.S. service members. Like, I don't know what happens.
Yeah, and it's also, I saw in the CNN, like, live updates thing that there's a source that they're saying says, and I mean, shit, take this with a grain of salt because I can't verify the truth of it all. Once again, a tertiary source. There's a source saying that Iran warned Qatar of the attack before it happened anyway. And so I think that gives, like, at least a little bit of silver lining to say maybe this attack could go the way of the attack on Israel after Israel killed the Hamas guy in Tehran. Iran warned them that they were going to strike Israel. They sent drones to strike Israel. Israel shot all of them down. It's just kind of this big hubbubaloo for really not much to happen.
Yeah.
Hopefully it goes that way, but I do not trust our leaders to show restraint.
It's so hard to know which way things are going to go because, again, there aren't nukes in Iran. The Trump administration, or at least Trump and all the high-up people, know that there aren't nukes in Iran. So there's got to be an ulterior motive here, right? There's got to be, and part of it might just be like Israel wants them to, so therefore they're doing it, or they want to, like,
Israel's got the video of Trump on Little St. James.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they could just be doing Israel's bidding because they want to. Like, I don't actually know, but, like, there's got to be a goal here. And if it's not to get rid of nukes because there are no actual nukes that they're targeting, then they're going to try to affect something else, which means that I would expect further attacks in the future.
That's what I'm saying, because it's like none of these attacks make sense anyway. It doesn't even make sense if you're thinking about, like, a resource extraction kind of thing, too. You know what I mean? There's no fucking way we're putting boots on the ground in Iran. And if we did, there's no fucking way we'd be able to easily just start doing the oil shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It feels like this is just an extension of Netanyahu needing to stay in power and needing to start more wars and have more conflicts so that he can never be challenged and his leadership can never be challenged. Yeah. And somehow we decided that we need to step into that equation and defend Israel and put ourselves into a war for it. Yeah. And there's a lot of companies that stand to make a lot of money by us going to war because then there'll be more investment in war. And I think ultimately it's moneyed interests that are just running this entire government. I mean, last week we didn't talk about it, but it was announced that Trump is considering removing bans on asbestos. And that is solely so that his real estate friends don't have to pay for, like, asbestos removal when they buy an old building from the 80s.
Yeah.
That's it. It's all money. You just follow the money, and every policy this administration is making goes back to X person said this is costing them some money, even though it's saving lives. We're going to kill people so you can save a buck.
It would be remarkable, though, if there were boots on the ground in Iran.
That'd be insane.
Like, a war we cannot win. Like, we were in Afghanistan for 20 years and we fucked that up.
Yeah.
To be fair, we were trying to like, install and maintain a whole separate government that immediately toppled when we left. But other than that, like if we invaded Iran for whatever goal, regime change, resource extraction, whatever, that would be fucking insane.
And so it's like, Iran is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, Iran's a big country with lots of mountains.
Iran's a big country with lots of mountains. That's heavy on that because we don't have like the terrain challenges that we had in Afghanistan. And the United States military isn't the best at dealing with terrain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Iran's like a real country with something like 92 million people. Tucker Carlson taught me that.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson taught me that Iran had 92 million, but he almost taught me about the ethnic makeup.
Yeah. Separately from military action, though, Iran could do, and seems like they are doing a lot to halt oil trade. And it could do even more through its proxies like in Yemen and whatnot.
Yes.
This will make gas prices skyrocket. I think you said that they voted to close the Strait of Hormuz.
Iranian state media, at least on Sunday when I was like doing the research into it, reported that the Iranian parliament voted to close the Strait of Hormuz.
That's 20% of the world's oil supply.
That's a lot of oil. That's big gas prices in the beginning of summer.
Yeah, that's $12 gas prices.
Have fun going up north with those.
Yeah,
no road trips, no nothing.
Yeah, so it's not clear exactly what's going to happen, but this is all very 2003 coded. Another war over, I don't know, oil
over
and regional dominance, with the pretext of it being WMDs, of course.
Yes, of course.
So,
the same shit, different day, really. And it's also just another example of how the president has a permanent just gas up button, but can never press the gas down button. Just infinite ways to press gas up, price up, everything up, bad up.
And it's like, if the logic of mutually assured destruction is that we all have nukes, therefore nobody's going to use them because that's the end of everything forever, then why wouldn't Iran try to get a nuke, especially at this juncture when it seems like the system as the U.S. has constructed it globally requires you to have a nuke, otherwise you're going to get pushed around by everybody else.
I was going to say, it sounds like you can just get bullied endlessly unless you have a nuke, so people have to back off. I don't want more nukes in the world, but I think there's a reasonable analysis to say that Iran feels like they need one, or maybe to say that Iran maybe even does need one to be a genuine player on the world stage. They're surrounded by countries that have nukes.
Yeah, I think the world is a more dangerous place for having nukes in them, right? Like, because again, anything could just like end the world completely, or any conflict, I suppose, has the potential to end the world completely. But like, yeah, the system as it's set up, I don't see why Iran wouldn't try to get a nuke, and I couldn't blame them for it. Like, nobody fucks with North Korea for real. Nobody's invading North Korea, even though we might want to, because they have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you try to become one of those countries with the nuclear weapons, especially because everybody in the world knows that Israel has nuclear weapons, yet they don't admit to it.
Yeah.
So there are no non-proliferation treaties that they have to abide by because like, oh, we don't have any nukes.
And they just didn't sign it, I think.
Yeah.
I think they're the only Middle Eastern country that hasn't signed the NPT.
And we're just cool with it.
And they just get to be cheeky about it for no goddamn reason. It's like, if you have nukes, it's either everybody has them or nobody does, or else things just aren't fair. The countries with nukes can bully anybody they want.
Exactly. And that's what's happening here.
I want no nukes.
I mean, we saw how it went with like Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, like all countries without nuclear weapons, and Iran's next up on the chopping block. Why wouldn't they try to get a nuclear weapon?
Yeah.
Especially now. I know, like, I mean, they obviously haven't, because there isn't evidence that they have nuclear weapons. For whatever reason, they haven't developed them. But now I would think would be the time to do it. If I were them, I would do it.
Especially after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine denuclearized with the explicit, like, agreement with the United States that they would get help if Russia ever decided to invade, and Russia invaded, and they don't really have a big deterrent that they can rely on.
The lesson is like, get nukes and don't give them up.
Yeah,
that's the lesson.
And that's an unfortunate lesson because nobody wants to play nice.
Yeah, no, it's the system as it is. But so outside of like the details of the conflict itself and exactly what has been happening, the consent manufacturing machine has been working overtime.
Yeah.
Since this unprovoked attack on Saturday, almost every member of Congress in the Republican Party has fallen in line in support of these attacks. There are some holdouts like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are unfortunately beating a lot of Democrats to the anti-war punch.
An absolute shame that more people did not immediately come out and condemn this. Because I'll tell you what, if there was any other new conflict that actually involved U.S. troops going somewhere and doing something, every single person in the GOP under Joe Biden, every single person in the GOP would have fell in line immediately, criticizing him, saying Joe Biden wants to kill your son, blah, blah, blah. We're getting into a forever war in the Middle East. You can't do that. They wouldn't let up on it.
Exactly.
But we can't do that because, I don't know, Chuck Schumer thinks that Donald Trump was playing too nice with Iran when he was making side deals.
As we'll get into, we got some statements from like Democrats, and the official position is literally like, maybe we should go to war.
It's like, well, if we consider the risks.
Yeah, no, it's very upsetting. Everyone in the administration, of course, is on board with this move. I think we should take a listen to JD Vance's clip on Meet the Press.
Okay.
And he's going to offer his explanation.
I'm sure he has some intelligent things to say, relying on intelligence. I mean, he was in the Iraq War. He was. He's a veteran.
He was in the Iraq War. Like, he knows what's up. He knows that Americans don't want a forever war. So I'm sure he's got a level-headed, perfectly hinged take on what's happening.
I mean, he ran on no more wars, just in general on stopping wars, on not allowing new wars to happen. So surely if a new war is to happen under his administration, he would provide a really good reason for it.
Absolutely. So let's take a listen to our vice president.
And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. So this is not going to be some long, drawn-out thing. We've got in, we've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years, and that is what the president has.
So his argument is we're built different. We're built different. They were dumb. I'm smart. I'm going to do all the right things. When we got into Iraq in 2003, we wanted to kill Saddam, and then we did, and then what'd we do? And then he says at the end there, the coming years? What does that mean?
J.D. Vance also had a quote where he was like, we're not at war with Iran, we're at war with their nuclear program. That would be Iran.
That would be Iran.
that would still be Iran.
Well, who runs the nuclear program?
Like, these dudes are fucking thirsty for another war in the Middle East after running on being the pro-peace people. It's so fucking insane.
They can't even manufacture a reason to go in there. They just say, we're going in there for the same reasons, but we're going to do it right this time.
Yeah.
No, trust me. It's like an abusive ex-boyfriend. No, babe, I will be better this time. Please take me back. And the taking back in this instance is another forever war that will kill hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, and to be clear, there was no 9/11 this time, right?
No.
Like, 9/11 was the motivating event for everything that happened in the war on terror. It justified our invasion of Afghanistan. It justified our invasion of Iraq and all of our military excursions in Syria and all these other countries. That has not happened here. There is no pretext they can use like George Bush used 9/11. They're just saying like, oh yeah, we have to do this.
They're not even like looking for a guy. Like, it's not even like we have Osama bin Laden to pin on everywhere across the country to say, this is the person we need to go after. So we need to go to every country that he's maybe stepped foot in and invade. They're just doing things.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, there's this other narrative I've been seeing when people come out and say, like, we should not be in this foreign entanglement. We should not be bombing Iran. And it often comes from people who are like, sort of on the left, but like aligned with whatever this is fucking war is going to turn out to be. And they say something along the lines of, and we saw this with Gaza too, they say something along the lines of like, imagine being gay in Iran. Or like, as a woman, I could not go over like with my legs showing in Iran. Like, they would kill me if I did that or something like that. And I understand the argument they're advancing. Like, I'm not in favor of Iran's like social politics or anything like that. But I think what they're doing in making this argument is aligning them with people, aligning them with the politics of people in this country that would do the same thing that Iran does in terms of like social policy if they could get away with it here.
Yes.
Because they're saying like, oh, you can't be gay in Iran. And in doing that, in pushing that narrative, you're aligning yourself with a political force in this country that would outlaw being gay if they could do it.
And it's also like, yeah, I don't fuck with the Iranian regime, but to do what you're suggesting implies sort of maybe even a regime change. And when has that ever worked out? When have we ever bombed anyone into submission on a social issue, let alone any other issue?
Explicitly, that's not the purpose of what's happening here.
Exactly.
Like, they're not bombing Iran because it's like, oh, we need to install a like. There's
we need to spread civil rights across the world, and we need to do this. We need to bring liberal principles over here. It's no, we need to kill these guys.
That's not even the pretext here. Like, we're not even pretending that like, oh, they need to be a liberal democracy. That's the most free system. Some people are talking like we need to liberate them from the Ayatollah, but when they say that, they just want to install a fucking monarch again.
Like, that's just like liberal girlfriend who has a boyfriend that works at Lockheed Martin. And she needs to rationalize it somehow.
Speaking of regime change, though, a lot of people have criticized what Trump is doing as regime change. And a lot of Republicans came out and said, no, that's not what's happening. This is a precise, targeted attack. We're not going to do anything else. We're not getting caught up in another war.
We're at war with the nuclear program.
But it seems they didn't get the memo from Trump because Trump had something else to say. He said, quote, this is a truth post on Truth Social. It said, quote, "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA." MIGA.
Bro sniffing his own farts. Like,
Yeah.
brother, you can't do that.
And it's like, we've got Republicans out here saying it's not a regime change war. That's not what we're trying to do. And then Trump is out here saying, well, maybe we should change the regime, though.
Yeah, but like, what if we opened ourselves to the conversation? Like, you know what I mean? It's about the free spirit of debate, being able to talk about ideas and whatnot.
I can't believe people ever fell for the idea that Trump is the pro-peace guy.
Yeah.
When this is obviously happening.
They folded under zero pressure.
Yes.
Like, and I mean zero pressure. There were no statements against the U.S. before this was happening. What happened was Israel struck Iran. They got into a conflict. Netanyahu called Trump while he was at Camp David, and then Trump said, all right, we got to kill them now.
Yeah, exactly.
Folded under absolutely zero pressure.
And again, like Tulsi Gabbard ran her 2020 Democratic primary campaign on the idea that we need to stop having these forever wars. We need to stop doing regime change. And the guy that she is working for, the guy that she is grifting, that she grifted to get a job for, is openly saying, let's do regime change.
And she said, okay, yeah, actually, you're right. I lied when I testified in front of Congress. Really, throw me in the fucking brig.
These people don't fucking believe in anything.
All they believe is like killing and death and destruction. I can tell you Nikki Haley and Pete Hegseth were geeked when they found out about this. Oh my God,
bro. Pete Hegseth his vision was blurry and he was so excited.
He fucking, probably before the goddamn situation was popping off with Israel and Iran, he was like, we could press the button. You know that, right? Like, we could.
At the same time, though, the Democratic Party has been fumbling the moment big time. Some Democrats like Rashida Tlaib and I believe Ro Khanna have locked in and called for a new war powers resolution, essentially to draw Trump's power back to do like military strikes, even though I think these are illegal anyway, what he's doing.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the power to do it. But look, he's doing what he wants to do. And so some Democrats are trying to reel him in. But other Democrats, most Democrats, are fumbling this moment. And I have a couple statements I want to read to you. This first one is from the Dems on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It was a statement they put out. It says, quote, "The United States must not rush into war with Iran. Unfortunately, Trump has not continued the bipartisan tradition of regularly briefing Congress on major national security events that impact Americans around the world. President Trump must now de-escalate tensions with Iran and immediately brief Congress."
Guys, what's going on is bad, but what about me? Guys, you forgot about me.
All of this would be cool if you had just like told me beforehand. It's that's
Wait, no,
rough.
as long as you would have told me about it, as long as you would have told me that Tulsi Gabbard lied about intelligence or that you think Tulsi Gabbard's wrong about intelligence, I would have said cool, because yeah.
This other one's from Hakeem Jeffries. Absolute banger, this guy. Quote, "President Trump misled the country about his intentions, failed to seek congressional authorization for the use of military force, and risks American entanglement in a potentially disastrous war in the Middle East. First, the Trump administration bears the heavy burden of explaining to the American people why this military action was undertaken. Second, Congress must be fully and immediately briefed in a classified setting. And third, Donald Trump shoulders complete and total responsibility for any adverse consequences that flow from his unilateral military action." What do you even say to this fucking guy?
I don't know, man. I don't understand why we even, why appeal to procedure in a moment like this?
Yeah, it's all about procedure.
Why not just come out and condemn this wholeheartedly? Because realistically, there is not a bit of evidence that you could show me that Iran is doing and whatnot. You'd have to show me a bomb that's getting ready to be launched for me to ever be like, yeah, okay, so go ahead and strike Iran. Go ahead and strike Iran. They got the missile on the loading dock and it's coming to us. Yeah, maybe we should shoot that down.
Yeah.
Brief us in a classified setting so we don't have to tell the American people what the intelligence is, and then we can just turn around and be like, yeah, guys, I think we should do it because I invested in Palantir recently.
Yeah, it seems like they want to just like be involved in the process, and they don't actually care about the merits of the issue, which is the fact that we shouldn't be bombing Iran whatsoever. And that's just like, Democrats could take this opportunity to be the anti-war party. They could position themselves as, Americans are tired of war. We need to stop investing in war. We're wasting money. People are hungry here. People need healthcare here, whatever. But instead, we're saying, well, we should have been briefed. But otherwise, maybe we could go to war.
Because what's really wrong with this statement is the idea that like, oh no, maybe this was principled. Because once again, we're saying washing Donald Trump's actions. We're treating him with kid gloves when he's got his fucking finger on the button. We don't need to be doing this. There's no context that could make any of what Trump is doing is okay. We don't need to be reaching across the aisle to all this. It's because these guys see the Republicans as their friends and Republicans see them as pedophiles. And that's why we have the dynamic we have right now.
And like low-key, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, who I didn't even see a statement from, by the way, they both like kind of fuck with the idea of going to war with Iran.
Well, it's like I said earlier, Chuck Schumer had that statement a couple weeks ago where he goes, Taco Trump is being soft on Iran. Buddy.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is doing secret diplomacy. Chuck Schumer said, Donald Trump is projecting strength in public while making side deals with Iran. Let the American public see the side deal, Taco Trump. Oh my God.
Opposite, by the way.
Oh my God. Some dude is posturing while actually doing diplomacy. What a fucking awful world we live in. I can't stand it when people pretend to be strong but actually make deals.
I mean, and we joke about like Nikki Haley getting her way, which she was geeked about this, by the way.
100%.
I saw tweets where she was very happy that we were doing this. But like Kamala Harris, when she was asked about like the biggest enemy of the United States or something like that, she brought up Iran too. And like, that's not me saying that we would be in the same position if Kamala Harris were president. I don't know if she would have gone through with bombing Iran. I don't know what it would look like. It's a counterfactual, but she conceded ground rhetorically at the very least. And also just like on the issue itself, she didn't have a good position.
No.
She didn't articulate a good position at the very least. So it's like, you can't even point to Kamala Harris and be like, oh, if only we elected her. She might have done the same shit.
Yeah.
At least on this issue. We know she wouldn't have been bad on other things, but this is like, come on now.
And it's like, maybe she would have been more measured. I think you can rely on her being more measured and whatnot, but like, I feel like a lot of this is capitulation to Israel.
Yeah.
Miriam Adelson gave Trump like $100 million. A
lot of money. A lot of money.
And she runs AIPAC, or she AIPAC top donor or some shit like that.
I don't know.
She's affiliated. She ruined the government and she ruined the Mavericks. Like that's what's going on here.
And these are crimes of equal weight.
She decided that we need to trade Luka, and then she said, yeah, actually it's cool if we bomb Iran. And those two things are both stupid.
Now, to end off this segment here, I want to try to put things in perspective for everybody. Under no circumstance is another war in the Middle East, no matter how big or how small, a good idea. And I want to pull from the Brown University's Cost of War project. It's a source we've used before on this show when we were talking about Joe Biden pulling out of Afghanistan and our other like issues we've had in the Middle East. But between 2001 and 2022, the United States spent an estimated $8 trillion in the war on terror. This includes things like direct military spending, funding for Homeland Security, payments on interest for the debt, veterans health care, and like every other direct cost associated with the war on terror. In that same period, nearly 1 million people were killed in direct conflict and combat. That's 7,000 U.S. soldiers, 12,000 allied troops, and more than 400,000 civilians across Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. And millions more likely died from sort of indirect consequences like economic collapse, food insecurity, destruction of public infrastructure, environmental contamination, and all these other factors. The war on terror cost us dearly, both in terms of like human lives and also the amount of dollars spent on the wars. And it led us exactly to the point where we are at right now, where we are again bombing a country in the Middle East. All that money, all that death, all that destruction, just to get to the point where we're gonna do it again.
We've learned nothing from any of these interventions. Republicans ran on the war on terror being a failure. 3 months ago, Benny Johnson was talking about Democrats and their forever wars. And then we turn around and everybody falls in line instantly when Donald Trump says, and they got nukes. Trust me, bro.
Yeah. And even if what's about to happen is only a fraction of the money we spent or the lives we lost in the entirety of the war on terror over the last 20 years, it will still be a total fucking disaster.
Hasn't there already been like a couple hundred deaths in Tehran?
Probably.
Just because of all the strikes that not only that we're launching, but mostly that what Israel is launching.
Yeah, I mean, like we're on the precipice of doing all of this over again. And again, even if it's only a fraction, it's going to be a complete disaster. Lots of people will die. The entire region will be destabilized. There might be a new regime that takes power, which of course will lead to destabilization. American lives might be lost. American taxpayer money will certainly be wasted. There is nothing good that's going to come from this.
No, and it's when has a regime change ever worked?
Exactly.
The CIA there's a lot of case studies that we can look at, and I feel like every time it turns out bad. Every time they put in a guy who's just stupid right wing, or they put in a guy that leads to somebody who is stupid right wing taking power.
Well, and I mean, and we did a coup in the 50s in Iran, and then we installed a monarch, and then that monarch got kicked out,
and that's how we got where we are.
And now, exactly. That's how we got where we are right now. It's like I don't know. It's a bad idea. The people running our country are bloodthirsty maniacs that are excited by the prospect of killing people and seeing death out in the world, and it's a bad idea.
Blood for the blood god for guys like Pete Hegseth.
Pete Hegseth, big time.
Pete Hegseth,
Pete
yeah.
Hegseth,
Pete
drunk all the
Hegseth
time.
and Nikki Haley. John Bolton, too. You know, people forget
John
about him,
Bolton
but he's been on this wave.
Brother, he got everything he wanted.
I know. He didn't even need to be the president. I didn't even need to jolt for Bolt.
John Bolton just needed to sit on the sidelines, and he got everything he wanted.
The fucking dominoes fell into place. He started this plan years ago, and then all of a sudden, right here, it's all coming together.
Yeah, so welcome back, George W. Bush, and here we go, Gulf War III, I guess.
Yeah, Gulf War III, boots on the ground, maybe before this episode even drops. I don't know, man. Everything, this has been beyond prediction.
Yeah, let's hope not, but stay tuned. I hate commercials.
Me too.
I hate listening to them. I hate when I hear them, whether it's on TV or on podcasts.
Grr, I just can't stand commercials.
They're the worst. And the one place you can go to avoid commercials, like this one you're listening to right now, is patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Become a patron, and you get early access to our episodes, and they're all completely commercial-free. No more interruptions.
And you could be one of our friends.
And that's arguably the more important point.
And, you know, in trying times like this, friendship is what we really need.
Friendship's really important, and you can buy your way into being a friend of ours by heading over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Again, early access to episodes, no commercials, access to all of our content before anyone else sees it. Become a patron.
And I guess a little lighter military news, because we still got to talk about the military. There's been some interesting developments that have happened recently. Last week, it was announced that there were going to be 4 big tech executives inducted into the Army Reserves as lieutenant colonels.
Oh my fucking
like
God,
real
brother.
full lieutenant colonels.
We're just doing like Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
We're just doing like big tech dystopia, giant corporations running the country.
And it's also like before we even get into like just the story here and the absurdity of it, what happened to conservatives hating big tech? I know what happened. It's that they gave a lot of money to Trump and Trump stopped yelling at them, and because they don't care about anything, they stopped yelling about it.
Yeah, and
But
big
like,
tech started capitulating in terms of how they regulate their platforms, such that, you know, conservatives can now say that trans people are grooming children on Facebook without getting banned.
Yeah, but once again, it's ultimately just like these people don't believe in anything. It's, oh no, we perceive these groups as being unfair to us, so we're going to hate them until they literally bias against the other side, and then we're good, until they fall in line, and then everyone else will fall in line.
They just want power. Like, as long as something services their project, as long as they can get their way, then they're cool with whatever entity it is. There's no principle take against it.
No principle take anywhere on the right, man. I swear to God. But anyway, these new Army officers are the Meta CTO, the Palantir CTO, OpenAI's head of product, and the former OpenAI head of research. OpenAI is ChatGPT, isn't it? Yeah. Lovely. All the thing everybody's using to cheat on their homework with. So if you heard that and thought that was the dumbest shit you've ever heard, I think that you're right.
Big on that, brother.
Huge on that. We literally just made a bunch of tech bros commanding officers in the U.S. military for no fucking reason. And when I say no fucking reason, it's literally no fucking reason, dude. Oh my God.
It's money, like you said.
Money.
It's just
They're
money.
called Detachment 201 and are part of like this broader initiative to make the military, quote, leaner, smarter, and more lethal. Pete Hegseth is just obsessed with killing.
More lethal? What the oh my God.
Everything we hear from Pete Hegseth and these DOD guys is everything that the Army does has to be about killing. If it's not about lethality, then it doesn't matter. And it's like, the military does so much more than just kill people. It's like a jobs program.
It would be really funny. Yeah, it is a jobs program for a lot of people. It would be really funny if, like, we spend all this money on the military, they do get deployed to Iran, and then we just get totally washed.
Yeah.
Like we spend all this money talking about, Pete Hegseth talks all the time about warrior culture, about maximizing as many people as we can kill, and then we just get obliterated.
Yeah, it's all just lethality. We need warriors in the military. We need warriors to fuck with Robert E. Lee. We need to deploy soldiers from base Robert E. Lee all the way to Tehran, and then they just get washed, just like Robert E. Lee did.
The problem is, like, we have so much money that we can just infinitely throw missiles and whatnot at a country if we want to. So there's not really like defeating us in like a classic historical sense. But everyone's gonna lose in like a real moral sense. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Things will just be bad for the world. But the stated purpose of this Detachment 201 is to advise military officials on how to incorporate up and coming tech. That's it. They just made a bunch of nerds COs for no goddamn reason.
I feel like, and these are like people that are high up in these big tech companies. What the fuck do they know?
There are policymakers in these big tech companies. It's like chief tech officers. So it's like people who do know about tech and like what's going on. But the big thing here to me is that what do these people need to be actual real members of the military, the Army Reserves, to do this role for?
It seems like they just kind of paid Trump or did something else for Trump, and now they got jobs.
They're LARPing. Like, that's it. They're just fucking LARPing, dude. There's nothing that they're going to be doing in this role that they couldn't do as a private consultant.
I mean, and it's like...
There's nothing they couldn't do here that they couldn't do as contractors.
We had already talked about the sort of Palantir plot and the connection to Doge and data scraping and whatnot in a previous episode. But that was all, I won't say it's speculation, but it's based on like connecting some disparate pieces together and trying to tell a broader story. This is just like, yeah, Palantir guys in the military.
You know, this.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yeah, we just hired him into the government.
These guys gave me a lot of money. They do some defense contracts, so let's give them some roles.
It's like, it's so explicit now. It's so in your face. And I think they do a lot of this because they just think they can get away with it. And maybe they can.
And I mean, this right here, this is just so like beyond parody too. And I mean, to get into the substantive portions of this, like, there's a massive imbalance in what's being given to these nerds and what we are getting as a country, what the U.S. military is actually getting. Like I said, there's nothing that they couldn't have just done as a private advisor who they contracted to talk with, or even contracted to like do military contracts with, like they all already do right? Yeah. And on the flip side, they are getting unprecedented access to our military.
That's the thing.
Without taking on any of the risks involved with actually serving our military, without any of the dedication involved in actually getting high up in the military, earning the rank of lieutenant colonel, and getting the information that comes along with that, the respect, the status that comes with that. And with the access they're given, are they not now just kind of incentivized to go back to their companies and steer policy more towards more military contracts?
Yeah. I mean, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can just use the access they have in an informal way to just land themselves more contracts.
Absolutely.
It's just like a cycle of money. And that's always been the case, like between, you know, military contractors, the military industrial complex, and the government, right? They lobby so they can get more money, and it's just this giant cycle between Congress and lobbying efforts. But now it's just, again, it's more explicit. Everything is more explicit.
The lines have never been this erased.
Yes.
Like, there's no line anymore. Yeah. They're just inducting big tech executives into the military. And I have to, once again, say, these are full, real members of the Army Reserve. But unlike regular people, they will not have to do basic training. They will be able to some of their mandatory, like, 120 annual service hours remotely.
Come on.
They don't even have to. Everybody makes fun of the Army Reserves for being weekend warriors. They don't even have to do that. They don't even have to go off on the weekends because they live busy lives. They're respected leaders and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're not Army Reservists. They don't have to. They are not having to do any of the sacrifice. Wired notes that they will have to do less intensive physical fitness testing and basic shooting training, but that's just a vacation for these guys.
That's just an exercise and fun.
Usually guys like this will go pay like, I don't know, $2 million to some former like private military corporation to take them out somewhere where they can shoot big military guns and pretend to be soldiers for a weekend. And now they just get to really do it.
Yeah, and it's like there's a sort of mythos with the military, which might not really be the case. I don't know a ton about like military culture, but there's this sort of mythos that like you join, there's camaraderie that you have with like your fellow officers or your fellow service members, and then you can work your way up and, you know, one day be a leader within the military and that sort of thing. These guys just fucking get it because they're rich.
Yeah.
Like these guys just, you know, paid some money to the Trump campaign or did something for the Trump administration, and now they just get positions just because.
Yeah. Some people have worked their whole lives for this. Some people spend their whole military careers trying to get up here. Some people can't because they're enlisted and they're not officers. They never went to officer school. And these guys just get there.
Yeah, the military, or I guess the meritocracy's never been more fake.
Oh, absolutely, man. And these are guys that run on meritocracy. Yeah. These are guys that talk about DEI being this bad program. They just kicked out a bunch of trans people that genuinely worked hard to be where they were within the ranks and added nerds.
And added
a bunch of nerds. That
provide no real value but get an infinite amount of access.
That's good. What happened to giving these guys swirlies? You know what I'm saying?
No, dude.
I don't know, man. When you get the fake rank, it's like, I gotta go there. But it's also like, most importantly,
it's like these guys were like high up in the, you know, in Palantir, OpenAI and whatnot. So I even question how much of a role they have in designing things like AIs for their companies.
Yeah.
Like, are they just like sitting at the top of hierarchies and all the other like computer engineers are doing the real work?
They're directing like policy. Like they're directing policy within their companies in like the area of expertise, which in this case would be technology. To my understanding, they're just going to like, there was an example given in the article that I was reading where like, oh, they could be asked about what the role of machine learning will be in doing something within the military in the next 10 years.
What the fuck do they know?
That is something that they genuinely have expertise about, but the problem is that's something that the military could just ask them. Mm-hmm. It's not something they have to give them a rank for.
Yeah.
It's stupid, and most importantly, when it comes to them being soldiers, being officers.
Well, yeah, and it's like you put them at the top of this hierarchy. They get to decide or they get to advise what policy would be with the authority of an official position. They're just going to say, "Oh, the policy should be for you to buy Palantir's AI software."
Exactly. The policy actually, I heard that Palantir was developing this really cool and good technology that would actually help you like super much when it comes to this. You should give them $1 billion for a contract, and we'll fully sell it all to you, and you'll have access to me and my expertise and my access to the company to help give the country a discount.
The AI bubble's never going to burst because the government's going to artificially keep inflating it.
Well, that's firmly why it's here. Like, that's firmly why it's still here, man. It's the AI bubble, the fucking crypto bubble. It's all fake.
But like before, it was running on like hype moments and aura from investors. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, our AI is going to, do X, Y, and Z. It's going to be your girlfriend or whatever. And so a bunch of people invested in it. It hasn't produced any real value, but now it can land infinite government contracts.
Well, and now motherfuckers on base have to salute to these guys.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Dude.
Genuinely, dudes on base will have to salute them, and they'll have to fucking salute back. This nerd in fatigues that he's never going to have to wear because these guys will not be sent into battle. And that's not just me saying like, oh, top officer, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to be sent into battle. They explicitly will not be expected to do any of the actual life risking. That comes with the military. At no point. All they're doing is going on vacation. And getting to shoot cool guns on my dime.
And probably making a salary.
And maybe. I don't even know. Right? I would guess probably. Mm-hmm. Even if they weren't making a salary, these people have more money than God.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter, right? They just get to go on vacation, and that's stupid. And all of this, they get to be a soldier. They get to play soldier without risking soldier, is especially poignant when we consider that we are at the precipice of war with Iran.
This is like so stolen valor.
Yeah, this is funny. Stolen valor. Yeah. It's stupid. And they got sworn in fatigues. They didn't even get sworn in their dress boots because they weren't ready yet.
So corny, dude. Sworn in fatigues, never went to basic training. Oh my God.
The first time they put on those fatigues is when they got sworn in. And that's going to be the last time they wear them unless they decide to be one of those guys that goes to the grocery store in it. You think the Meta CTO is going to walk around, I don't know, goddamn all the insight, here's my military discount? You're going to give me my 10% off, flash the DOD ID?
It reminds me of that one meme where it's like the dude in Home Depot saluting a soldier that's like getting something. And the caption's like, the dick riding is crazy. That's what it feels like. It's just, it's not the exact vibe, but oh my God.
No, it's there. It's there. And these guys are, this is fully gone to their head, right? With all this in consideration, it makes it even crazier that Kevin Weil, the OpenAI head of product, that's now a goddamn lieutenant colonel, said in defense of the program that he thinks his advice has more meaning because it's now coming from an actual officer. He said, quote, "There's nothing wrong with being a contractor, but if we're off supporting an exercise somewhere, it's different that we're wearing the same uniform, having taken the same oath."
It doesn't mean anything.
Brother, you're wearing the same uniform in the same way that I can go to Abercrombie and buy camo. Mm-hmm. I can go buy a camo hoodie and go out there and wear it. This shit is for the fashion, brother.
Yeah, I could go to like the military excess store or whatever it's fucking called.
Oh my God, yeah, I could go buy fatigues. I could go do that, but then I could do the soul and valor thing.
Yeah.
It's coming from an officer. Brother, you did nothing to earn the respect of an officer.
Yeah.
There are dudes, obviously, like you graduate officer school, right? And you're an officer. You immediately get inducted into those ranks. You start in the military as a lieutenant. You are a higher rank than someone who maybe is like, say, an E9 in the Marines. Okay. You're not respected like someone who's an E9 in the Marines. Although you're a higher rank, although that E9 needs to salute you, you do not have the respect that guy got because that guy has served and put in his time and maybe even done some important and impressive things, whereas you're the fresh new upstart out of college. Your rank is higher in basically name only. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And maybe an alternative take, devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
I think it might be unfair to expect them to earn the title of officer because they've never had to earn anything in their lives. So how could we expect that of these leaders of massive tech companies if they've never had to do it before?
Fuck, you're right.
I thought you leftists believed in equity.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Why can't these guys get a head start? You guys always believe in helping people like maybe where they're deficient. Mm-hmm. Why can't these guys have it all?
These guys should not have to depend on the opinions that other people hold of them because then they wouldn't be able to get anywhere.
And it's just like you're telling me these are like the big tech like executives that I need to like worship as a like peasant on the ground who doesn't make nearly as much money as them.
These are the guys that Curtis Yarvin wants running the world.
Yeah, these are society's leaders. These fucking nerds.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nerdy. And I say nerd in like a derogatory fashion here. It's the guy with the anime t-shirt and the action figure collection.
Of course.
It's nerdy to go out there and say, yeah, we wear the same uniform now and took the same ooth.
It's just pathetic.
When you didn't even do basic. Like, it's basic training for a reason. The goddamn pencil pushers in the military did JD Vance did basic.
Yeah, JD Vance did basic, and he was a military correspondent. He was a journalist for the military. And he at least went through basic training.
Everybody else did.
Pete Hegseth went through basic training.
They're probably like the only guys that didn't.
Like, how can you be Pete Hegseth or JD Vance or anyone in the government right now that has served in the military, see Trump make this move and like treat it with seriousness
and be like, yeah, cool. When you're talking about a warrior culture, lethal warrior culture, we're restoring fairness to the military. This is a meritocracy. No more DEI because trans people make us uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Go listen to this nerd. Yeah. Go listen to this nerd that's never done anything in his life.
That's your commanding officer.
You gotta salute that guy until he tells you don't gotta salute no more.
Damn, dude.
I don't know, man. It's silly. And ultimately, it's just another example of Trump rewarding people who bend the knee.
For sure.
He's selling out our military to like these fucking techno-fascists and expanding the military-industrial complex by just expanding big tech's ability to profit off of war and killing and death and destruction.
I wonder if there's been any other point in American history where the influence of wealth has been so obvious and direct.
Yeah.
In government. Like, obviously, as long as money and politics has existed, they've influenced each other, right? Naturally, this is just like the way of the world. It's human nature. But this is just so fucking obvious what's happening.
They're not trying to hide it.
No, not even a little.
I don't, man.
It's really bad. Anyway, time to move on to some more bad news.
Talking about really bad. Yeah, that was really bad in like a funny way.
To put it in perspective, that's the light story this week. You know what I mean? We got to turn our focus away from the military, away from war, away from death and killing, towards an institution that wants to cause some indirect death and killing.
An institution that's back on my shit list.
Yeah, I was trying to segue. I didn't really feel very good that one. Anyway, we're talking about the Supreme Court. We're talking about trans rights because unfortunately, last week we got some more bad news on top of the new war in the Middle East. That is the Supreme Court issuing a 6-3 decision. Can you guess who?
Maybe, let's see. I think there's a coalition now of maybe Alito, Sotomayor, and Kavanaugh.
Yeah, no, it's the liberals versus the conservatives, folks. The 5-4 podcast, is that what it's named? Because like conservative liberal, is that the idea? Like
I don't know.
Is that because it's like a play on the SCOTUS ruling?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Probably.
They got to change their name to 6-3 because that's the new norm.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. Anyway, someone can let us know. I'm not versed in them. But there was a 6-3 decision upholding a 2023 Tennessee law banning gender-affirming care for all people under 18 in the case U.S. v. Scrimeti. You might remember this law. We covered it when it dropped. It was a pretty big deal. Tennessee had one of the harshest bans on gender-affirming care across the country. Mm-hmm. It was basically, if you're under 18, no gender-affirming care whatsoever.
Yeah, no puberty blockers, no nothing. Forget about surgery.
Expanded well beyond surgery. And this case specifically had to do with like puberty blockers and that kind of stuff. But yeah, no gender-affirming care for anybody under the age of 18. This ruling, though, doesn't ban gender-affirming care for those under 18, like nationwide. That's not what the purpose of this case was. But instead, it basically says that such laws don't violate the Equal Protection Clause. And the way they get there is fucking insane.
Okay.
Like, we thought for a month or so.
Yeah.
We were like, the Supreme Court, maybe not so bad.
Yeah, for a brief moment.
And as soon as we get back to the social issues, we're back in a position where the Supreme Court is just twisting and tearing apart the law as they understand it.
They're really letting us know exactly what kind of conservatives there are. And they're conservatives that fuck with themselves and their own power.
Yes.
And not with any other marginalized group.
100%. So I'm going to walk you through how we get to this point. So the plaintiffs argued that the Tennessee law violated the 14th Amendment's equal protection rights because it discriminates against people based on sex and gender. And this is explicitly true, right? The Tennessee law allows cisgender teenagers to access things like puberty blockers, for example, for something like precocious puberty, but explicitly denies them to transgender teenagers. This is discrimination based on sex and gender.
Yeah, no, and there's really no other way around it too, because this what this does is it will allow one group of people to access puberty blockers in service of a medical condition or medical treatment, but does not allow another group to access puberty blockers in service of treating a medical condition or treatment.
Yeah.
And what defines what group gets what is based on what you were assigned, based on your gender or sex.
It's discrimination based on sex, right?
Yeah.
Because like you're assigned a gender at birth, you have a certain biological sex, and what they're doing is discriminating based on what you were assigned at birth. That's all it is just a discrimination based on those characteristics. Whenever SCOTUS is faced with an issue that pertains to discrimination based on a protected class, like sex, for example, it requires what's known as heightened scrutiny. Basically, stakes are higher, therefore, this law has to have a really good reason for going into effect. However, the court sidestepped this heightened scrutiny requirement entirely by arguing that the Tennessee law doesn't classify people based on sex, but rather based on age and medical use. This was the heart of Robert's argument.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
They love just pussyfooting around what they actually believe and trying to get these insidious things done in a way. And once again, it's the soy right back at it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And the argument here is that puberty blockers are outlawed from being prescribed to those with gender dysphoria. And because not all trans people experience gender dysphoria, the law doesn't discriminate against trans people on the basis of their gender assigned at birth, which is total fucking nonsense, of course, because we know what the intent of the law was. You could probably find quotes saying that the intent of the law is to eliminate trans people, right? But instead they're saying because not every trans person experiences gender dysphoria, this law doesn't discriminate against trans people specifically.
And it's just like, that's so bullshit, because we're failing to go the next step and interrogate what gender dysphoria is, because you cannot have gender dysphoria if there is not maybe something to do with the gender that you were assigned at birth.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you feel like you were assigned the right gender at birth, there's no dysphoria that goes in there. It's fundamentally related to these characteristics.
Yeah.
You can't separate it.
Yeah, and a similar argument has been advanced in front of the Supreme Court before. In the 1993 case Bray v. Alexandria Women's Health Clinic, the court argued that, quote, a tax on wearing yarmulkes is a tax on Jews. That doesn't mean that every Jewish person is going to wear a yarmulke, but we can tell what the intent of a tax on yarmulkes would be.
Yes.
It would be to place a greater financial burden on Jewish people as a whole. Same thing with gender dysphoria here. Yeah, sure, every trans person is not going to experience gender dysphoria, but by outlawing access to medical procedures that assist with something like gender dysphoria, you're targeting trans people.
Yeah.
And that is the intent here. Roberts tries to say like, oh, it has nothing to do with being transgender. It's just an age and medical use thing. That's obviously bullshit. And I know it's bullshit because Amy Coney Barrett wrote a concurring opinion where she basically said, yeah, equal protection just doesn't apply to trans people.
Oh, nice.
So that's cool.
Well, because it's a choice. It's a choice. It's not necessarily maybe a treatment for a medical condition or anything like that. There's just like, they're showing their ass, right? There is literally no way to separate the idea of the gender or the sex you were assigned at birth from the essence of being trans.
Yeah.
It has to do with that. You can't.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So obviously this Supreme Court ruling opens the doors for more laws like the Tennessee law banning gender affirming care for minors. It allows more of these state by state laws to like go into effect. Obviously this is going to be disastrous for trans folks on the whole. And I don't see why a state under this ruling couldn't just pass a ban for adults as well, because it would be discriminating based on medical use, not based on the status of that person as a transgender individual.
The case really has nothing to do with the under 18 nature of the original law. Yeah. The only reason that comes up, the only reason this is for minors is because that's just what the Tennessee legislature thought they could get away with.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And it is the stated goal of some conservatives, at least, to get rid of transgenderism, quote unquote, as a whole. I mean, Michael Knowles says that kind of shit.
Michael Knowles says it, and Matt Walsh says it.
We know that tons of Republicans subscribe to that belief. So it's a major setback. It's a human rights issue, I would think, and it's It's bad to see. The Supreme Court once again proving that all they care about is the preservation of their own power. That's the only time they'll make a good decision in the face of someone like Trump. Yeah. But other than that, still an evil, unhinged institution.
Yeah, they're stuck in a very interesting spot where there's a very narrow set of cases where they have the opportunity to do the best thing, and everywhere else where they choose to make the worst choice ever. Yeah. When it comes to, I guess, just a full descent into fascism and authoritarian takeover, we can really count on Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. But when it comes to, I don't know, civil rights and doing the right thing, they fall back in line with the worst among them.
Yeah, so once again, our recommendation is steadfast. If you are any person of a marginalized group at this point living in a red state, maybe don't.
Maybe don't. Flee if you can.
Yeah, get out. Well, and the issue is, I think like New Jersey passed a gender affirming care ban or restriction of some kind too.
So I mean, we have Tom Suozzi in the party. We have Gavin Newsom going around. Gavin Newsom, maybe the future Democratic nominee for president, saying that we let the trans sports issue go too far. Yeah. And if they're willing to admit in 2025, when frankly nobody who doesn't pay attention to politics gives a shit about anything that they're saying, that we let the trans sports issue go too far, they're just kind of poll testing how far they can go to capture people who they think will vote for them, who will never vote for them. Yeah. Because just like with immigration, you will never out transphobe the Republicans. You can never do it. You can have as principled of a take that you want against trans women in sports. It's never going to stop the people that think that a trans woman is a man competing against their little girl. Yeah. It's never going to stop Tom Suozzi from saying we got 6'6", 350 linebackers going against their little girls in softball.
Yeah, because now we are not in an age of moderation. We're in an age where people want extreme solutions, not in the sense that people view them as extreme, but in the sense that they get people excited and riled up. You know what I mean? People want aggression. People are motivated by hatred of other groups or other political agendas right now. So moderating on an issue like trans rights just makes it easier for your opponent to win. Because if you're the guy that comes out here and says like, oh, well, maybe we should consider banning some trans women from some sports, people that care about that, people that vote based on that issue are just going to vote for the Republican.
Exactly. They're going to say, well, this guy also wants to just get rid of trans people, and I think they're weird.
You need a counter. Exactly. you need a counter narrative. Yeah. You just need a counter narrative.
You have to defend the truth ardently. You can't just let people go by and say, oh, my consultant told me that this issue is polling well with XYZ group of people, therefore I'm going to try and never nail myself down on a position on anything. I'm never going to make a definitive statement on any maybe controversial issue. I'm just going to kind of go, that's why people fucking hate you. And we've watched it happen. We talk about it. We won't stop talking about it when it comes to immigration. We've constantly watched the Democrats open the door to the normalization of conservative ideas and have it blow up in their face.
Yeah. Same thing with trans folks. Like Kamala Harris did not talk about trans people whatsoever on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
And we saw public opinion shift on the issue. Because Democrats aren't willing to get out here and fight about it. And, you know, I get it if a Democrat's like, well, even just like talking about the transport issue is losing. Like, okay, I understand where you're coming from there.
That's why you don't make it about that.
Yeah, pivot and call them weird. Like, the Republicans are focused on the genitals of children. Yeah. Like, that's all you got to say.
You know, for real, dude, I'm saying, like, you can say, I can concede that there are some things that say that the general public is not fully there when it comes to trans women in sports. I think that's dumb and stupid, and I'm going to use my platform to fight back against that.
Of course.
But I can concede that maybe somebody running for the highest office doesn't want to make their campaign about that. Make it about a different part of it. Why don't you, when somebody goes in there and throws that obviously disingenuous statement out there because they're doing it to get a rise out of a subsection of people and make an issue bigger than it is, why don't you call them out for making an issue that doesn't matter bigger than it really is? And why don't you refocus the conversation on literally every other aspects of the trans experience that people fuck with broadly?
Yeah.
It's silly.
Yeah, and I really we basically saw no Democrats come out and talk about the Supreme Court ruling, and maybe it's because like it dropped at the same time the Iran stuff was happening.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
But like Democrats had nothing to say about Iran either. So I mean,
they've just been silent.
They had a lot of time to talk about whatever they wanted to, and we didn't really get anything out of them. But you know, maybe I'll give them benefit of the doubt. They don't deserve it, but maybe we can say, you know, other bigger news overshadowed this decision. But it would, I think, be beneficial electorally and just morally for the country, the health of the country and its people, for us to start making some stronger arguments in favor of the existence of trans people. Because I don't know, they're humans.
And it's also just like, it kind of brings me to this conversation that, or maybe it's not a conversation, but to the statements that Chuck Schumer has made about how we will let Trump's actions speak for themselves. If we let Trump's actions speak for themselves, there's going to be a wide subset of people that don't necessarily know how to process those actions and where to take the next steps to combat them or where we should move as a country. And if the Democrats aren't getting out there and putting forth a affirmative position against what Trump is doing, being militantly against it, strongly saying that they don't support what's going on, and offering a vision for the future, the people who don't know what to do are going to run to the people who are offering that vision. And often it's Republicans who say we need to do more of this because, oh, it's not working because it's bad. It's not working because we haven't leaned in more.
Yeah.
Oh, the Iraq war didn't not work because it was principally dumb and stupid. It didn't work because we didn't have Trump in there and he's really smart.
Exactly. Well, and it's like on this idea that we should just let Trump's actions speak for themselves. Trump doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Trump puts a narrative spin on literally everything he does.
People kind of like low-key need to be told where to go. Like, I'm not saying that you need to tell people what to think, but there are a lot of times where even I come across an issue that I'm not well versed in, and I need to figure out, maybe let's analyze the facts and figure out what the take is. And I'm looking for people, and I'm having to shift through constant amount, like a ridiculous amount of people who are trying to tell me what to think. Whether or not that is good or bad is a subject for another day, but whether or not it happens is plain and clear, and the Democrats aren't the ones that are taking advantage of it. They do not want to get out there and put out a narrative.
I mean, but it's not even like convincing people how to think a certain way. It's just like making an argument.
It's steering them in the right direction.
And that's like that's the whole of politics. That's the whole of like discourse.
It's convincing.
Is convincing people to come over to your side. It's trying to persuade them. And you can't do that if you're not willing to explain why you did things and why those things are good. We saw Biden try to just do things without explanation, without taking credit, and for all the good stuff he did, and he did a lot of good things in terms of domestic policy. It just didn't break through to people because a lot of the time they weren't willing to explain it, or when they were willing to talk about something like inflation, they were like, "Oh no, inflation's actually better here than elsewhere."
Whenever they are willing to talk about like other things that Joe Biden did, like the CHIPS Act or something like that, something that was good. They only ever talk about these things as being good within Republican framing.
Yeah.
They only ever talk about the CHIPS Act being good in terms of bringing back American manufacturing, and the same thing with all of the other issues that were going on. They can never frame things in their own unique and novel way. They can never steer a conversation. Conservatives are reactionary when it comes to their politics and their solutions to things, but liberals are reactionary in that they will never come up with a solution, and they constantly react to the winds that conservatives control.
And they are just owned by the polling,
they're owned by consultants, man. I'm telling you, give me $20 million and I will change the party. I'll do it, bro. You just got to cash it. Give me an unforgivable cash injection. And I will steer this party in the right direction.
Give me an amount of money that corrupts me forever.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Anyway, moving on to our last
Speaking
news
of
story
amounts of
here.
money that will corrupt people forever, national land.
We're considering the sale of national land. I don't think this is going to pass.
No.
Based on how unpopular it is, but Senator Mike Lee from Utah introduced the idea of selling federal land to make up for the budget deficit in the Republican budget that's moving through the Senate right now. Actual information on this proposal is pretty sparse because we got like written text, like a resolution or an amendment to the budget or whatever it ends up being. But like the claims being made about this are equal and opposite. So it's kind of confusing what's going on, but I found a quote from the Salt Lake Tribune, of course, a publication from the state of Utah, and it says, quote, "If passed, the legislation would require 3 million acres of public land to be sold, chosen from a pool of 258 million acres across 11 western states, including Utah, over the next 5 years. So it seems that under this bill, there's a requirement to sell a small amount of land relative to like the critical mass of land that the federal government has. But more than a third of federal land would be potentially up for grabs. And for those that don't know, the federal government owns about 640 million acres of land. So it seems like this bill is just like, yeah, maybe we'll sell a third of all federal land. I don't know.
I love how ultimately like their solution to everything is just sell out.
Yeah.
It's either sell the military out to big tech executives, sell the military out to nerds, or sell out national parks to pay for the rich to have tax cuts. And it's funny because like a lot of the people that would be able to buy up this land, you know what I'm saying, are the people who would get the tax cuts. You're just subsidizing rich people buying land.
And like this bill was introduced, or this amendment, whatever it's going to be, was introduced explicitly for like the housing issue.
Oh.
Mike Lee keeps saying like, we're going to sell this land so they can build more housing. First problem there is like, if I can't find an apartment in, say, Detroit, where we currently are, I'm not going to Utah.
Buddy, I want to live in Detroit. I don't want to go and live in Yosemite.
I'm not going living in a canyon.
Yeah.
It's not happening. It doesn't make any sense. But also it's like you said, the people that could go and buy this land are going to build luxury condos, single family homes.
Condos, and they're going to get more tax cuts. And they bought this because of tax cuts that they got. We're just giving rich people money to monopolize the country.
100%. We're trying to pay for tax cuts for the rich by selling land to the rich.
Conservatives love to say that if you elect a liberal into power, you'll own nothing and be happy, and that kind of feels like what it is right now. And yes, we collectively own national parks. I pay for them with my tax dollars.
That's cool.
And I can go there and be in all of its beauty, if you will. I don't want a Walmart in the middle of Yosemite. I don't want a Walmart in the middle of untouched forest.
A lot of national parks are really cool.
I don't want to be able to pull up and get grab-and-go Cheez-Its at a 7-Eleven in the middle of somewhere on a hike.
One of the best parts about the United States, and a genuinely good thing about the United States, is the maintenance of our national parks, especially out west, because as we expanded westward, as we were running out of land before we hit the coastline, the federal government started keeping a lot of it because, finite resource. And a lot of it is, just national park land. And that's cool.
It is cool. It's land that anybody can go to and chill.
Yeah. And I think nature is cool and good. And thankfully, a lot of people from across the political spectrum agree with us on this, both liberals and conservatives, even though I would say a conservative that believes this is contradicting their own values. But whatever. Mike Lee has claimed that the outrage around this bill is exaggerated just because a small amount of land is what's going to be sold. He said something like 0.5% of the total federal land portfolio is what's going to be sold. I'm skeptical.
And it's even if it's just 0.5%, you know what I mean? Maybe I would be open to selling 0.5% of federal lands if there's an actual crisis going on and an actual thing we needed to make up money for. I will never be open to selling out our national parks to pay for tax cuts to the wealthy. Ultimately, that's the premise here. What this is built on is just wrong and bad.
Or even if we accept his framing of we're going to sell land to build housing on it, again, you're not addressing the problem that there's not housing available where people want to live. But also on top of that, you have no method, especially, Mike Lee, a Republican, supposedly a guy who likes free markets. You have no method of ensuring that the homes built there are shit that people can actually afford. It's just going to be luxury shit that nobody can afford.
Absolutely.
And that's not going to alleviate the housing issue, because the issue is, one, there's not enough supply of stuff that people actually want to buy, and also, two, increasing private ownership of those vacant properties.
It's just going to be luxury condominiums or single-family homes.
Yeah, what we need is an intervention in the market from the government to actually make housing more affordable, and that's obviously not what this is. So ultimately, national parks are cool.
Yeah.
Conservation is cool. Conservation conservative. I thought it was in the name. And I fuck with nature.
I fuck with nature.
Yeah.
I do.
That's that.
I do. They, the rich, will own everything, and I'll be happy.
Thankfully, this is a ubiquitously unpopular thing.
Yeah, Mike Lee has come out with some real bangers this last week or two, right? We've got this, and then we have the genuinely evil tweets that he had about the situation in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, he said Marxists get what they deserve.
He said Marxists get what they deserve. He posted a picture of a ring camera picture of the fucking guy who killed Melissa Hortman, in front of either her door or the other family he shot's door, and he said Nightmare on Wall Street.
Genuinely evil person. Yeah,
that's genuinely depraved.
How do you
How do you think? And you have an army of staffers behind you. How did nobody think, maybe guys, we should stop here?
All I'm gonna say, I'll just drop a Lenin quote. What can be done? What can be done? I don't know. How do you share a country with these people? You know what I mean?
I don't know, man.
I think that was the title of one of Lenin's books. What can be done? But I don't know.
Asking myself this question every single day.
What can be done, brother? How can you? We have a sitting senator who's yeah, you got what you deserve. She was a liberal. She was just a regular liberal.
Just a person. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, that's fucked up.
Anyways,
and while we ask broadly what can be done, individually, I know what you can do. And that's go over to patreon.com/headintheoffice, baby. And you can get yourself on this list of wonderful people that help support us here at this show every single week. And we got to give a special thanks to Caden Kraut, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Mike Chaplinsky, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro, Tari, Fergalaki, Max Vasquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Blueberry, Fixer Punk, Jem Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bega Burrito, Cincy Elks, Joe Stentrum, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsfree. You know what? I gotta pause right here. Cincy Alex, I hope you're listening. I remember when you were in one of our first live streams for the midterms in like, what was it, 22, and you said there's no way JD Vance wins Ohio. Look where we are right now.
Oh, this is your fault, brother.
Look at where we are right now. Colleen Cutsford, Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Crawfish, and Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and his Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Retro Mondo, Veronica, a.k.a. V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grotler, Murder in a Trench Coat, Casey Lynn Kelly, A.K. Gon, Aquana Don, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C., Anna Valinic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes.
August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Signs, Brennan is Egg, Froggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Chris T, Kashad Lala, Amanda R, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Particulon, Memfrez, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Booty Snakes, Do Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fitta Hussein, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addy Book, Merlin, Cryobongi, Sergeant Pookie, Hoodie, Kim Kitsuragi, Rose Grimm, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Noah Sajas, Majo What, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney and 6-Inch Heels, Luke Wechter, Henry Kraggles, Tristan Ringsmith, Yaya, Asura the Atheist, Aiden Reese, Deep State Agent, Puddle Pirate, Joshua Franklin, Southern Lefty, Lark61, KC, Cannon Man, Troy H, Rourke Muffalo, Nahan San Diego, House Hunyor, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. Also, the Lennon book is called What Is to Be Done, not What Can Be Done. But you guys understand.
You get the point. We're paraphrasing.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of Lennon unless Zoran loses.
Then I'm coming. Zoran loses, I'm purchasing the Mao book.
I'm breaking up the workers' councils. I'm coming in like crazy. Iron Fist. The people don't know how to lead themselves.
Absolutely, they don't. The unwashed masses.
Exactly. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a great week.